What's up, guys? Welcome back to Shinantics Gaming. Actually, I have a different video for you guys today. I just kind of want to gauge it off you and see what you think about it and see if it's something you want me to continue to do. It's called Let's Talk About Gaming. So this series, basically, what I want to do is I just want to share my insights, things that I've noticed, things that I think have changed over time, current gaming versus old gaming, past and present, those kind of things. But just kind of talking about those things and what makes a good game and what is good about gaming and why do we love to game and why do we love playing video games. So I'm going to be covering that kind of stuff in this series. So I'm kind of basing it off of you guys, so let me know if after the video if you like it. If you do, give me a thumbs up or post in the comments and let me know what you think of this series, and I'll continue to do it if you guys are into it. But the topic I want to talk about today is story. So what makes a good game story, or what makes a video game story keeping us involved in it and invested, and what makes a gaming story great. And I guess the first point I want to make is, because I'm from an acting background, so in acting the most important thing to focus on when you're creating a role or you're creating a character is to focus on what is their backstory. Where did this person come from? Where are they on their way to? Like, what struggles do they have? Or, what makes them tick, essentially. And it's no different from creating a video game character as opposed to acting in a role for a movie or a play or anything like that. I think in video games, a strong character helps drive a really good story. So, the most notable example that I can think of is Nathan Drake from the Uncharted story. You start from his beginnings, and you follow him through 3 games so far, with the 4th one in the works. But you follow his story, and you get from Drake's fortune to Drake's deception, the 3rd one. You get a very wide range of who Nathan Drake is and why he does the things that he does and his personality and his attitude, and you love it. He's kind of got this bad boy, rebellious kind of attitude towards him, and it's great. It keeps you involved in the story and what's going on, and on top of that, you get to see him in all of these interesting scenarios, right? So from old temples in the jungle to the desert to the icy caps of the Himalayan mountains. It's all over the place, and it's adventure, it's fun, and that's what keeps us invested and keeps us wanting to play more and to continue to find out what happened, what is the artifact he's looking for, what's at the end of the rainbow, so to speak. But it's those things that really make a great story, and I guess that comes to the next point is setting. Is it a fully involved, fully created world that you're entering? My example here would be BioShock, the first one mainly, but I mean the corresponding games even after that. BioShock was a very unique game in its time of when it first released, because it took you wholeheartedly and completely into this whole underwater world that was just fully realized and fully involved. And from the moment that your plane crashes, spoilers if you haven't played it, but from the moment in the very beginning to the end, you are fully involved in the city of Rapture and what that is. From the tiniest little details where there was times, and I found that really great games do this, but you can go into the game and from your first person view zoom down into a screw, something so minuscule, something so little that you're like, they probably just threw a texture on this, or maybe tiled it out so that it's saves time if you just tile it out. But no, if you go into the minuscule details of games like BioShock and other games like that, and you go down to the tiniest little crack, the tiniest little bolt or detail, it's fully involved. Somebody went in there and they painted the crap out of that screw or that crack to make it so that there is no way that you feel disconnected from the world that you're in. And I think that just is an amazing experience that video games can give us, where it's from the start of the game to the end, you're taken to a different place. And of course, you know, I think other mediums do that as well. Like, I think film has that, you know, ability. You know, if it's a really good film, it kind of gives you an escape away, you know, takes you to a fantasy, or like Lord of the Rings, or something to that effect. But I think it's a little bit different in video games, because you actually get to interact with this world, and you're controlling it. You're behind the wheel of this person, and you're finding their story. You're following them, much like a book. You know, you're kind of a voyeur and looking from this perspective, whereas in a video game, whether it's third perspective or first perspective, you're there. You're right there next to the person. You're getting these zoom-in shots of like the action and gunfights and everything that you do in a video game. You get to control the action, and you control how this character makes decisions, you know, and everything. So, I mean, that's my feeling of like what story, you know, those two aspects together make for a great game and a great story. You know, some companies do this to wild success. I mean, like I said, you know, the guys at Irrational Games, you know, BioShock, incredibly amazing environment, amazing story, and it's carried itself, even though the second one was not the same people, but that world kept people wanting to play it. People still want to play BioShock. I still play BioShock from time to time. I'll go in and I'll play all the time, because I love this experience. This was a great kind of escape for me, a great, I guess, vision of what this game is about and this world and what's going on in it, and I got to figure it all out, which was great. You know, another one that obviously has been wildly successful across several games is Naughty Dog. Even from the early beginnings of Crash Bandicoot, I mean, the story in Crash Bandicoot maybe isn't on the same level as Uncharted, in the way that Uncharted is more of a realistic narrative, and Crash Bandicoot's kind of like a fun, like, little cartoon adventure, much like Spyro. But in that way, even from Crash Bandicoot, there was, what, four really good Crash Bandicoot games, and there was like 4 or 3 really good Spyro games, because the person, Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, the character, whoever it is, you related to. I mean, not really. He's obviously, you can't really relate to a dragon, or, you know, what is a bandicoot? I guess is what he is. But the story was intriguing. Like, you wanted to be the hero at the end of the game, you wanted to defeat Cortex and save the day, and you got all these fun animal companions that you felt for, and so those things, those aspects, is what really makes it, you know. And Naughty Dog, even from the early stages, all of their games, you know, go to Jak and Daxter. This game, even though it's cartoon, you know, even though it's not a realistic narrative, much like their new games like Last of Us and Uncharted, this game, you really got into the story. You know, there was the comedic relief of Daxter, like, coming in with his smart remarks, and Jack's the serious, you know, hero who's going to save the day, and there's 3 games. Why? Because people loved it. People ate it up. They related and they liked the story, and so they continued to play them and continued to buy them. And that's why it's, I mean, there's an aspect to re-releasing games, and I have a kind of love-hate relationship with re-releasing games, but I'm more leaning towards the love side, because for me, these games were a huge part of my, you know, my youth and growing up, and I really related to these games, and they were some of the first video games I ever played, and they, you know, are very special to me in that way. But re-releasing them gives them new life. It gives the new generation the ability to go back. Like, you know, kids today aren't going to know what Jak and Daxter is. Even though there's 3 games and it was wildly popular, nobody from, you know, the kids growing up now are going to know what this game is. But if you re-release this, make it HD, make it up to, you know, today's industry standards, then you'll be able to reconnect with an entire audience. So now, like, the kids growing up, you know, I think that our generation, my generation, I should say, that got to experience these games firsthand, will be able to share with our kids and say, hey, I want you to play this, son or daughter. This game is really great. I think you'll really like it. And, you know, from an early age, they get exposed to games like this. And it kind of creates a more, I think, a future where people have those expectations of, I want my game to have really great story. I want my game to take me somewhere and to provide a narrative that's relatable and just makes it real, I guess, is what it is. But yeah, I mean, Naughty Dog is always, you know, quality, narrative, story-driven, really strong characters, and that's what they excel at. Another one is Rockstar. Rockstar games, also, their games across the million that they've done, all the Grand Theft Autos, yes, at its heart, there's a lot of multiplayer, and that's become a very large aspect of their audience, is they, you know, have a bunch of people who just like to mod the game and make their character look like a monkey, or blowing up tanks, or like flying helicopters into each other. Multiplayer has obviously become a big aspect of it. But from its humble beginnings, you know, the original Grand Theft Autos, when you're just a little stick figure man, to Vice City and San Andreas, the stories have never been anything to laugh at. Like, the stories have always been really good and really interesting, and, you know, they kind of start slow, honestly. Like, they're a little bit slower than something like Uncharted or a Naughty Dog game of some kind, where it's just kind of throws you into the action, gives you a little bit of introduction, and then throws you right in. I think that the Rockstar games are more based in reality, because most of the games are set in our own reality. You know, it's in a major city, a made-up city, but they're kind of based on real places and real people. But yeah, and then they do other things like this is my favorite Rockstar game, L.A. Noire. I love the time period, the subject matter that's in this game. They talk about, you know, the studio era of, you know, of acting, which was really great to see, and just, you know, the police system at the time of what was going on, and like the Black Dahlia was a great storyline. But everything in this game is just very story driven, and it even takes storytelling a step further and gives you the decision to, you know, make decisions on how you want the story to play out. So if you think that somebody, you know, they had the mechanic where you could be like, oh, is this person telling the truth? And based on your decision, different things would happen. You know, you would get to a point where it's like, this guy's like, I haven't seen my wife all day today. And it's like, is he lying? Is he telling the truth? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. That was kind of the decisions you had. And I think that was awesome, because it would just cater to the story to how you would make your own decisions. So even though you're finding out this character's story, the police guy, I forget his name, but when you're finding out his story, you're still able to put in your own kind of spin on it and your own decision making. So it's these games that, you know, really are changing the way that games are designed and the way that games are played, and it's just a really great thing to see. You know, honorable mentions, I guess, that have also just are still, you know, still great games, even with their older games, but with the newer technology and the newer consoles, they still hold a candle to any of the games that we're releasing today. God of War, Dead Space, and God of War. Dead Space is one of my favorite games of all time. I love horror games, and I love games that have a good story. So this game has a little bit of both. You know, it's a really great game. Now, granted, I only have a hard copy of the third one, unfortunately. My other ones are digital. I have Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 1, and I played both of them. Dead Space 2 being my favorite of the three. But even then, you know, it had some misgivings, obviously, towards the end, and I don't know that we'll ever see another Dead Space, just because of the way the studio is and the people who are creating are now doing different things. But these games are amazing. You know, they take a different aspect of combining horror with a really great story. So you're not just playing this aimless person in first person, you don't know who it is. You're following the narrative of Isaac Clarke and the loss of his, I think it's his wife or his fiance, and how he deals with that, and you're kind of coming back to, you know, he's kind of lost his memory, and you're coming back and finding out what all happened with him. In the midst of really great gameplay, you have really awesome story. So not only are you like turning the corner and crapping your pants because some necromorph came out of the side and freaking stuck its blades in your chest, but you're finding out more of how Isaac got to this position and how he's, and the marker and all of the awesome juicy bits of the story that drive the character forward and drive him to the ultimate end and beyond. Hopefully, fingers crossed for Dead Space 4, because I miss that game. I miss the gameplay. Yeah, and I wish that they would make another one. And then same with God of War. They've remastered God of War on the PS4 and from the PS3, and it's lasted the test of time, and people always talk like about that game because the story is great. You take something that's established, Greek mythology, you give it a unique character, Kratos, and you put those things together, and it's a recipe for 4 or 5 games. Why? Because people want to play something with a great story. Now, I think things with multiplayer and with, those aspects that are just multiplayer focused and driven, I think those games definitely have their place. But the things that last the test of time, the games that, will continue to have success and continue to grow and have sequels and that you can basically evolve with, your gaming taste and your gaming styles evolve with this game through the course of, 1, 2, 3, 4, and even sometimes 5 games, it is the ones with the root of it is in the story and developing that and getting designers and sound artists and illustrators and everybody to create something that is unique and fully realized as its own thing, as this organic, free-flowing, ever-expansive experience for the player. And I think that those games are the ones that we'll see more and more in the future after I feel like as of now, we're kind of in a downtrend where studios and consumers are like, I don't really have time to play this game, or like these games are great, but they're too expensive to make. And, kind of that's where the industry is at, in my opinion, just from what I've seen. But there are a few people out there who are committed to this, committed to creating these types of games and these types of experience for the consumers, and they are just knocking it out of the park. The ultimate example, I guess, is Dark Souls and Demon Souls. From Software does an incredible job of giving you a great story without completely giving it to you. You do have to do a lot of self-exploration, and you have to do a lot of investigative work to get the whole story, but you're in this world and you're fully like enveloped in it, and you're meeting people and you're sympathizing with their stories. You meet characters like Solaire, and you sympathize with him, and you want to know why he's on his quest and why does he praise the sun. And in that game and that series of games, it has become such a huge following, and people love the Dark Souls games because the story is great and it's paired with great gameplay. Granted, it is challenging. Like, I'm not gonna bat an eyelash to how difficult the game is, but with some practice and getting into it and getting into the story, there's no other game like it. It just creates an incredible experience. And even though you are not playing this from like a first person perspective, you're playing from this character that is kind of, you're creating the story of what happens to this person, and you have relatively some decisions that you can make in the game. But from Demon Souls all the way up to we're about to hit the launch of Dark Souls 3, every game has just, not only with gameplay but also with story, built upon the base of the game before it and enhanced it and made it even that much better and more enriching. And one of my favorite games right now to play is Bloodborne, which is, From Software, Dark Souls, same type of game. I love that game because the story is amazing, and the gameplay is awesome. And of course, some players are turned off at the initial because, like I said, the difficulty is real. It's difficult to get into a game when you go down the first staircase and there's 5 guys and you get instantly murdered, and then you have to start over again. But if you can get over that initial hurdle, the story and once you dig deeper into it, through whether it's like lore videos or reading the item descriptions, but just getting more like digging deeper into the story of that game, there's so much there. And it's like, unless you did the investigative work or you were playing it and finding out these little nuances of the game, you would never know were there. Like, you could play through that game and not know anything about the story at all, which is sneaky on From Software's side, but it's also genius of them because it keeps people wanting to buy the next game and keeps them hooked, and it's just great. But yeah, I mean, I think I've talked my face off about this topic, but I really want to know what you guys think about this. I know that there are some games out there that maybe I don't know about that are really great. I'd love to hear about them. If there's a game that you don't think I'm aware of, I would love to know about it. If it has a great story or great characters, I would love to know. Maybe more obscure games. Let me know in the comments, or shoot me an email or something. I would be love to play any more kind of these games, because honestly, I love them. They're my favorite games to play. Of course, I'm a very social person. Most of my gaming habits are very social based, but I do have a certain level of respect for these games that just can take you somewhere else and take you to that kind of realm of where you don't even realize really that you're playing a game. You just feel like you're kind of watching a movie or in a story. But anyway, guys, I have exhausted this topic, but thank you so much for watching. Please let me know if you like these videos. I will continue to do them with different varying topics and things that I think are going on with the industry and where it's going and all of those things. And I also, I want to do this series just because I like talking about this stuff, but I also wanted to do it because I want to hear your thoughts and what you guys think about these topics, and let's have a dialogue about it. Like, I honestly want to know. I want to get people thinking about these kind of things, because nowadays, I mean, we are in the midst of what I like to call gaming hell for the next 4 months or so, because you've got Uncharted 4 coming out, you got The Division, which is kind of a multiplayer-esque game, you've got Overwatch coming out from Blizzard. There's just so many games. Dark Souls 3, so many games in the next 4 months, and I know for you guys and for me, it's always a dilemma of like, crap, like I want to play all of these games, but I can only pick a few, or I can only pick 1 or 2. So which one do I pick? And why? So anyway, guys, so thank you so much for watching. Like I said, I'll continue to do this if you guys enjoyed it. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time on Shinantics Gaming.